What up guys, this is Mo and welcome to the 12th episode of the tutorial series for Phantasya. And this episode is by far the episode that I had to take to make the most retakes for so far. Don't worry, it's not your fault, it's mine. I'm just an idiot, just like that. So, back onto our subject at end. In the last episode, we covered how to use the create event command to make new events on your map that weren't created at design time. This time, just like I promised, we're going to look at how we can use this to create projectiles on the map that you can shoot and that you can shoot the other events with. So, the first thing we'll need to do, of course, would be adding new graphics for our shot, for our projectile. So we'll be adding a new graphic, and this will be it. It's a glowing orb sort of thing. Yeah, nothing more to say about it. So the next thing we'll need to do would be adding a index number that we can use to create it, just like we did last time. But this time we're going to be adding it through the database, since we're going to be needing to use it more than once. It's going to be something that we'll be using every time that we press the shooting key that we'll set. Other than the index variable that we just make, we're going to need 4 more variables that I'll get to explain later, but just set them here right now so we don't have to do this later. These would be a distance number variable and 3 point variables named source, current, and target. I'll get to explaining each of these later, but right now we'll need to take the index and set a 4-digit number to it. It doesn't necessarily have to be a 4-digit number, just like I said last time, but it's best if you can make it a 4 or more digit number, so you don't run into events that you already have on a map. Make sure that it's unique. Yeah, so now that we have all the variables set up, we'll start creating our shooting event. That will be a global event. We'll make a new global event and set it to automatic, since we want it to keep trying to detect a key that we're pressing. But we won't be using a key. Instead, we'll be using the mouse to demonstrate the move by angle command and how we can use it to give more freedom to our movement in our games. The move by angle command is pretty much ideal for shoot 'em ups or zombie survival type games, and many other things that you can use, and we'll show how that works right now. So inside the shooting command, the event, will need to add a new condition that checks whether we clicked the left button anywhere that's not on the hero, and we'll also need to add a new condition property that we didn't discuss so far, and that's the exists condition. This thing checks if the index under the number that we gave it, index number, if an event with that index already exists on the map, since we don't want to create the same event twice right now. So we'll give it the index that we set in ahead of time, and we'll reverse the condition, since we only want to create the new event if it doesn't already exist. So that should be it for now. And now we'll be adding the create event command itself. Just like last time, we'll feed the index, the position onto the hero, since it's the one shooting it, and the graphics that we'll be using. Let's set the size of the graphic. There'll be 8/8 pixels with 4 frames, and 5 animation speed should be fine for it. We'll also set it to be above others, just for convenience sake. This time we'll be using the activation and the sign code properties, but that will be at a later part of this video, since we don't actually have the event ready right now, so we can't assign it right now. So that will be it for this, for the create event command. And so far what we managed to do is make the game create an event on top of the hero with the graphic that we set it to, if it doesn't already exist. So what do we do to move it? This is the whole point of this episode, and that is the move by angle command under the move and graphics tab. The move by angle command is pretty much what it says. Actually, it lets you move an event or the hero by a certain angle that's not limited to the 8 directions that the keyboard gives you. This gives us more freedom in movement. So to use it, you choose the event that you want to move, and we'll use the index from earlier for it, and you choose whether you want to move it according to the mouse position on the screen, or you want to move it according to a point variable that you set earlier, but we'll be using the mouse. You can also set that you want your character to move back from the position that you gave it, if you would want to do so, but this time we need it to go forward, since it's a bullet, and that's what it does. And the last thing you can do, you can set whether you want the event to move one step or all the way through to the target, and we'll be using this one. So let's demonstrate. Let's save the map and play. Now, as you can see, once we click the map, we'll get orb flashing while it moves, and will move in a direction that we gave it. This was pretty horizontal, but if you looked carefully, you'd see that it traveled in an angle that's not natural for the 8 directions. We'll look at this again later, but first of all we'll need to make sure that we can delete the event from the map, so we can shoot another one later. Before we do this, let's set the speed stat of the event as well, so we can do things more quickly. Let's set it to around 5 speed. Yes, now we'll be making a new global event, and we'll call it inside shot, since that's the event that will attach to the bullet event. That's the code that it'll contain. What we'll be putting in here, before we do this, actually, we'll go back to this event and we'll use the variable stat command 2 more times. We'll do this to set the source variable into the hero's current position, and we'll use another one to set the target to our mouse position, to the target. Now I'll explain what we're doing with these 3 point variables that we made earlier. What we'll be doing 2 things. We'll be checking inside the shooting event, inside the projectile event, we'll be checking whether it reached the target that the mouse was in at the point where we clicked, or it will check if it ran too far on the map. We'll give it a limit of distance between the source and the edge of the distance that it can travel before fading away. So we'll need the source to indicate the shooting position that we shot from, the target, which is the mouse click, and we'll need the current position to update every time on every frame on the projectile, to check if it's if it's the same as the target to delete it at that point. So let's do this right now. Going inside the inside shot again, we'll first check if the target is the same as the current position. The first thing we'll need to do every time would be setting the current into the current point variable from our event. We'll be using this pointer for this, since we can do this, since this code will be all called from inside the projectile that we'll be making. So we can use this to give the current event's position into the point. So once we have this, we can go straight into the condition and compare under the conditional tab between the current and the target variables, and if they're the same, we'll add a command to delete the current event. Simple as that. Let's check if this works. One more point of interest, guys. Under the activation method, it doesn't really matter if it's by call or in function mode. If you're setting the code into an event, since it copies it into the event anyway. At this point, it only matters if you use the call global event command. And yes, we forgot to attach it, so let's do this right now. We'll set the inside shot. So what will happen at this point, you'll take all the code from the inside shot global event and give it as the code that this event will be using. It will be the same as editing the event from the editor at design time. And we'll be also be making the activation method into automatic. So now that we got this fixed, we'll be saving and playing the game. And we'll be clicking closer to the hero to see that it works. Clicking over here, you see the shot flowing all the way through to the mouse and then disappearing. This is what we want. This is pretty good. But what happens here? As you can see, the shot just stopped moving anyway. The mouse was a little too much on the edge of the screen, and the position couldn't be the same for both of them, as well as many times that it won't be enough for you. What you would want to do is make sure that the event gets deleted anyway. So as a failsafe, we can go back inside here and make sure that after a certain distance the event would be deleted anyway. We have a command just for this case. That command is the measure distance command, and we'll be using it right now. The measure distance command takes 2 point variables on the screen, or to set a number. You can use any combination, of course, but you can't use events to control this, because we'll need to be using a more precise method of extracting the data. So it's either points or certain or set values. You can, however, of course, always create your variable at runtime even if you need, and set the current position of any event to it. So it's not really that much of an hassle, but yeah. So we'll be checking the distance between the current position and the source position, and we'll be storing it into the distance variable that we set up earlier. And this is why we keep updating every time. This is why we got set the source when we made the event the first time. This will keep this value will just keep growing as much as the event keeps moving, as much as our projectile keeps moving on the screen. So to manage this, we'll add another condition, a numerical, a simple one. We'll just check if the distance is higher than, say, 8. That's by tiles, by the way. That's 8 tiles. If the distance between our current shooting position and the current position of the variable of the projectile is more than 8 tiles, then we'll tell it to delete as well. So let's check that it works, and pretty much that should pretty much be enough for this episode. The move by angle and the distance, the check distance commands aren't really that much of advanced topics that will cover a whole episode for just them two, but we also went through a lot of variables and global event usage, so I think it was an okay episode. If you think this was too slow, this was to make up for the long episode in which we went through a lot of commands with the text boxes and stuff. Just tell me in the comments below if which style of episode you prefer. If you want more detailed episodes covering less information, or more information in less explanation time. So now that we're here, let's check that it works. We'll click over here in the edge, and as you can see, it goes 8 tiles and disappears right there. You can of course set the value higher or lower as much as you would like, as much as your project sees fit, and you can of course use timers instead of distance if that's your preferred method of action. But this was just covering the distance, the check distance command. Yeah, so for this time this will be enough, and next time we'll be using the collision check method to see how we can make our projectile affect the target, the enemy that we set up on the map last time. So that should be enough for tonight. Have a nice one, guys.